The government shutdown closing in now on 3 weeks. We're at 3 weeks, folks. Joining us right now to talk about it, former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. He is now chairman of the Alpha Institute. Want to welcome him to the broadcast. Kevin, help us understand where you think things go from here. And at this point in the ball game, who's actually got the leverage?
Well, good point. I've been through many of these. This shutdown's different than others. I kind of call it the Seinfeld shutdown because it feels like it's about nothing. This is the first time government has shut down over a continuing resolution. And for your viewers, that means it's shut down over keeping government exactly as it is. And normally when you're in these situations, they stay until the pressure mounts or one side feels they're winning or losing. That pressure usually happens within 2 weeks, the pay period, if troops do not get paid. But troops have been paid. And then when I was talking to a Democrat the other day, they were explaining to me they feel like they're winning because they believe every day that Congress is not called back into session, they've won, because that's one day less Republicans in a majority have to pass their agenda. Trump only has one term. If things flip at the midterm, they'll feel that they've stopped the Republican agenda from doing anything because they're not even called back into session. So, and I think the country is so divided, there's no clear winner here. Republicans feel it's the Democrats' fault. Democrats feel they're doing the right thing because they're just fighting Trump's agenda. So I'm fearful as I don't know what really gets us out of this problem.
Well, so that's fascinating, to this idea that Democrats just almost want to slow walk this effectively to prevent additional legislation of any sort from being passed. If that's the case, and you do have the military being paid, if you were to start to look at a calendar and think about any kind of inflection point that could force the issue, is there one at all?
Well, it's normally you got to feel that pressure. I mean, now really, look, no one wins a shutdown. Now, for the first time, those who work at the nuclear facilities, the stockpiles, they are being laid off. You're doing some real damage here. Capitol Police, those who are protecting you, are not being paid. But members are not here, so only the Senate is. There's different ways to do this. If you called people back and they're taking tough votes and people are seeing it, and if you went across the country, they really don't feel it either. But I was at an event this weekend where a number of people said they drove from New York to D.C. because they were afraid to fly, because they didn't think if their plane got delayed. So people are beginning to feel it there with not enough workers. But how do you change this? Because they're not asking for anything. Schumer actually voted for a continuing resolution earlier this year. This is just the political pressure of his base telling him he doesn't have the power to vote to keep the government open.
Well, Kevin, that raises the question, did the president make a mistake by trying to pay the military in this moment? Obviously, you want the military to be paid, no question. But by doing that, it takes a lever away from the pressure that you just discussed.
I'm not sure. I mean, it doesn't make sense to continue this shutdown. I think the president actually is playing it right, not to cause any economic damage, to continue to just govern, go out and solve peace plans around the world. And then you look at the House and Senate, the number one basic thing to do is to actually govern and keep government open. So it's when the public decides one side has won and one side has lost.
Right.
They had the rally this weekend. Maybe they got that out of their system. Maybe they're ready to come back. And really, what they argue, what they think they're fighting for, these Obamacare provisions that were put in during COVID don't take effect till later this year. I'm fearful that this was the time you were supposed to be negotiating that. So even if they come out of the shutdown, they could roll right back into one with the appropriation bills because they've wasted time to negotiate.
Hey, Kevin, I've thought a lot about you during this shutdown because you, as House Speaker, had a lot that you were managing, trying to keep things together. For a while, it seemed like you were bending over backwards, trying to keep your party kind of together. And then you said, no more. I'm not going to do this because I am not going to use up my credibility or do things that I don't believe in for this. You lost your speakership as a result. Do you think Schumer's in for a moment like that, where I don't know what he's doing, what he's kind of holding out with on this, but at some point, he's always been opposed to government shutdowns. He's always said that. At what point does he have to say no more?
Well, now the one point is I'm the only speaker in modern history that never had a shutdown. Remember, I moved a continuing resolution.
Right, you did. You made the deal.
I kept government open so troops could get paid. But
right.
you know, my situation's different. It's one person that slept with an underage girl. That's the reason for that places. But Schumer's in a different position. It's kind of like where Republicans were in 2013 with Obamacare rolling out. You're in a second term of another party owning the White House. You've got your base upset with you. But to continue this forward, remember, Schumer had a book deal and couldn't even go on a book tour after the last voting for the last CR. So he's got to get that pressure pushed out. And the hard part is, if the speaker or if the leader of the Democrats cannot vote to get out of the shutdown, none of the other Democrats can do it as well. They only need 5 more. And until Schumer truly believes he can vote to get it out, why should the others vote for it? So it really rests on where he stands. And this is a real sign that both Democratic leaders are weak in their power. You've got to lead. You've got to be willing to risk that. You know, I threw a continuing resolution on the floor, and it stuns the Democrats. They didn't know what to do because they were really wanting it to shut down. And you had to push your own party there. And that's what leaders do. You push your party to a different position, to the right position, and you take the political hits for whatever it may lead, because that's why you're in a leadership position. Otherwise, you're just letting the masses control and determine what happens.
You know, the factions are still evident, Kevin, in the House that you had to deal with. I think maybe they got a little sick of, you know, if you have enough votes trying to get a speaker, you finally settle on one, and it's like, let's just keep this guy for a while, you know. And I think Johnson been doing an unbelievable job in trying to wrangle cats and hold things together. But do you think this could end up being a sticky situation for him? Because the writing's on the wall that Republicans are, you know, in some red states are going to get squeezed. So they probably want to do something. If maybe they can rein in some of the, you know, the fraud and some of the other things that make Obamacare so unaffordable that's causing all this. Maybe they can do that. But there probably will be some type of deal extending things. Then Johnson could lose some people on the right and need Democrats to, you know, to pass something which could then threaten his speakership if he has to go that way. Is that possible, or you think?
No, I don't think Johnson is ever in any problem of losing his job. Remember, you've got the president. Even Johnson getting his job, it was the president who called. The president makes sure these bills passes the floor. You've got real power. President Trump is stronger than any Republican president has ever been, stronger than Ronald Reagan. And so that doesn't really affect Johnson's job. He's fine as long as President Trump is there.
So it's going to be a deal. That's what who was it? Not I guess that's what Mark Kelly, the senator we had on last week, said. The president's got to do this. He's got to decide how to come up with something to extend it, and then it'll be over.
Yeah, but that extension takes place when you do your appropriation bills.
Right, I know.
If I hear what Republicans are saying, they're probably going to extend this. It's not going to look exactly as it does right now. They're going to put some accountability into it. But really, that wasn't why the Democrats shut down. They shut down because their base told them not to agree anything with President Trump. And now they feel they are winning because they have shut Congress down, that Congress is not in session. So they're taking away a day. Every day Congress is not in session, they think they've denied Trump a day to govern.
Hey, Kevin, while we got you here, weigh in on this, because we keep seeing Mike Johnson get asked the same question. There is a Congress person who has to be effectively sworn in from Arizona. Their father passed away, and he keeps getting asked, is a Democrat, of course, this person's a Democrat, of course, whether the swearing in is being delayed, whether it's being delayed by the fact that Congress is not in session, whether this is appropriate, whether Mike Johnson is slow walking things. You've lived in this seat. Speak to it.
Look, the power of the House is the Speaker. They control everything. And so some people say, oh, this is about the discharge petition. That's not the case, because it wouldn't continue to click the clock. So that doesn't really affect. but you want to put pressure on Democrats. He could decide when to swear in, when to not. I know there was a time I was in the minority, and the Democrats delayed swearing somebody in because it affected the state assembly in California. There's normally a number of days that go forward. You're supposed to wait until the certificate comes. There doesn't really challenge on whether she has the seat or not, but you're sitting in pro forma. That's purely up to the Speaker. But I think that distracts from the shutdown, because if you go do a press conference about the Democrats, they're going to ask you about that. I'd take those deflections away. I would simply do a press conference, or I'd take votes on the floor that would embarrass and put the pressure on the Democrats, or I'd simply take 2 Democrats a day and put the quotes what they've said about government shutdown and let the public literally see what's going on.